as just more of an opportunity for us to get more men who are fags and fag. Let me tell you something. I'm the Lord with testicles through your ass.
Hi, this is Trav Mamone of the By Any Means podcast. Join me every week as I talk to activists, bloggers, and podcasters about the intersections between social justice and humanism. Go to www.byanymeans.com, that's by spelled B-I, to listen to the podcast and read my blog. Besides, aren't we all a little bi-curious?
Another Secular Story episode coming up. Tonight I have a friend of mine that has agreed to come on the show. His name is Bobby Nelson. He is of the Strange Frequency Radio. He's one of the co-hosts along with Jason. Give me a 15-second rundown on what's the best way to explain you, Bobby.
Me or the show?
Well, let's go with the show first.
Okay, so Strange Frequencies Radio is a show that tackles, we like to tackle skepticism, science in relation to the paranormal, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way. Sometimes we go off on tangents on other topics.
You're pretty varied. I'm an avid listener myself, so yeah, I can attest to. They can go off on tangents, shall we say, like Bobby was saying here recently. What is it? Making a Murderer. I haven't even had to watch the show, and I know more about it than most people probably do.
Why do you refuse to watch the show?
I don't have Netflix.
Oh, that's all. Okay, so it's a Netflix problem.
Yeah, I already spend like $150 on my freaking dish bill, so
yeah. I feel you there, brother. I'm trying to figure out a way to cut costs over here because I don't know why cable or channels of these natures have to be so expensive. Anyway,
they are it is so weird that it's so expensive. And you know what the bad thing is? I can later on, probably a year from now, go to iTunes and just download it. The whole entire thing.
Yeah, I'm sure you could.
For a fraction of the price.
Or you can just listen to the last 4 episodes of Strange Frequencies Radio where we go into deep detail of the show.
Very deep detail. All right. So, that's a little bit of what Strange Frequencies Radio is. So how about you? Let's go into a little bit of what makes you tick.
Oh, man.
Tell us a little bit about where you are, where you grew up, what in a nutshell makes Bobby.
Well, man, that's an in-depth question, and that might take a long time to answer. Well, I live in Toledo, Ohio. Currently, I'm working on studying for the LSAT to get into law school. That focuses most of my time right now. My interests are arguing with people. That's one of my main things I like to do. Sometimes I can be a bit of a troll.
I know.
I could be a bit of a troll sometimes. I am there's so many things that are a part of me that I'm a atheist. I am a skeptic of all things paranormal. I have fascinations with technology, although I'm not like a tech head, but I couldn't tell you how a computer operates, but I want the newest, Mac computer. Yeah. So things like that.
Let me help you. We'll narrow it down a little bit. Well, you say you're an atheist, but I personally know that you come from a religious background. Tell us a little about your process from going from being a devout Christian to an atheist skeptic as you are now. I mean, you can go into as deep or as shallow, whatever you feel comfortable with talking about, but just give us a rundown on that.
Sure. So I grew up Lutheran. I had been going to church my entire life. I went to a school called Trinity Lutheran here in Toledo for 9 years, from kindergarten to 8th grade. I went to a public high school. Now, I didn't grow up in a strict Christian home, but, we didn't pray before dinner. We didn't pray before we went to bed, but I did go to a very strict school in which they, the main purpose of the school is to indoctrinate you. They want, and then the reason why, I still say the reason why we went to church as much as we did was because if you went to the church, then you got a discount on the tuition.
Well, at least there was a practical reason for it.
And that's actually most, as far as I can tell, a lot of Christian schools in at least this area offer a deal like that. You get if the school is a part of the church, if you're a member of the church and you actually go, because there's a requirement. I believe it's 3 weeks out of the 4 weeks in a month, you're required to be at church unless you're sick or something. And then they knock 10-15% off the tuition of the school.
Yeah, I've heard of those programs before. Yeah, it's like a government subsidy, isn't it?
That I do not know.
I think it's something like that, man.
And
politics isn't my thing. That's yours.
And I loved it. I loved Trinity. I loved it so much that, I have a 7-year-old daughter right now who went to Trinity Lutheran preschool till she was 4 years old. So that might actually be able to pin down that, I'm still a relatively new non-believer, and as I progress in the story, you'll probably see that my faith left kicking and screaming. So I 100% believe these things, and it's still so fresh in my head that when I talk to other believers, I still know the mind frame that they're in. I ask all these questions now, but there's a lot of hard questions that you can ask believers. But the truth of the matter is, we just didn't think of those types of questions. You didn't think of why did God let people in the Old Testament smash babies' heads on rocks. You don't ever think of those questions. They basically don't exist because, again, I'm speaking from experience. We're basically told what passages to read and how to interpret them. We're never actually allowed to. It sounds weird, but we never used our own brain. We actually just did everything that the pastors told us in class when we were getting confirmed in things. These are the passages you read. This is what it means. And if you ask questions, they were either dumb questions that you really didn't ask, or, how dare you ask that? This is the word of God. And that's how I accepted it all. I accepted that into my 20s.
Now, whenever we haven't gotten to the ghost hunter paranormal side just yet. Did you see that as a hand-in-hand thing? Being a paranormalist, investigator, however I know you unfortunately still think in those terms, unbidden. Was that something that was hand in hand? Was it something that you had separated in your mind? Was religion different than the paranormal, or were those two things actually really entwined together?
So that's an interesting question, because I know that, so during the time of my ghost hunting time, I was still a big time Christian. I was still going to church all the time. And a lot of people would ask me, things like, well, doesn't the Bible state pretty much that when you die, you either go to heaven or hell? And that's pretty much the belief of the LCMS, the Lutheran Church of Missouri Synod. But I played the game where if I could just find one Bible verse that suggests that there's a ghost, and I was able to find it. I can't remember what it is. It's perhaps it was the Witch of Endor story, which is really funny.
But that's another time, another place. But
and I believe they conjure up the spirit of it's escaping my mind right now. But I was able to use that as, oh, look, that's a ghost right there. and that right there, I was able to use as a way to solidify, well, the ghost must exist. And it's an interesting, it's silly now when I hear it, when I talk about it, but that's how I was able to, be a Christian and a ghost hunter by, creating up, scenarios that I find in the Bible that I fitted for myself. It's what Christians do all the time.
Me personally, is, even though I didn't have a quote unquote religious background, as far as that goes, to me, in my mind, what's the difference between a ghost and a demon and an angel? That doesn't really, in my mind, it just doesn't click. I don't get the difference.
Sure. So I could try to explain that if you'd like. So
if you want to.
A ghost would be the spirit or soul that has left a human, and angels and demons were never human. They are divine like creatures in heaven that for some reason decided to fall short of God's grace and were casted down to hell. They were never human. So
in your mind, you actually have a clear delineation between a soul that is being tortured in hell and a demon that is in hell, and the same thing for an angel. Essentially.
Well, I mean, I imagine it. I don't think any of them are real.
We're talking about in the hypothetical right now.
Sure,
that's essentially what you mean. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sorry to get off on that.
Oh no, that's fine.
Those things interest me to no end, because with my quote unquote, again, religious background, there really wasn't a big difference in my mind. Anyways, so we were talking about your deconversion. Sorry to get off on a tangent there.
No, it's fine. So then, well, it's gonna play into the whole ghost hunting thing. So I started a ghost hunting team, and somewhere along this time, I met Jason, my co-host, and Jason and I decided we thought it would be fun to start a radio show. So 8 years ago, we started Strange Frequencies Radio. And I think it was episode 6. We started talking really early on. Let's get people on the show. Let's not just make this a typical, preaching to the choir show. Let's get people on the show that have different beliefs than us. Excuse me. So the very first person that we got on the show that had differing opinions than us was James Randi. And I remember James Randi came on, and we were talking, and when he hung up the phone, Jason and I had a conversation and said, what is the reason why we're doing this show? And we ultimately came down and said that it doesn't matter what we want to be true. It only matters what is true. So if we should be doing this show, and we should talk to somebody that is able to provide us evidence that ghosts do not exist, which is very easy to do, that we would have to give up the ghost. So in a sense, if somebody went back and listened to the entire archive of Strange Frequencies Radio, you could hear a deconversion story played out. You can hear two people that were avid ghost hunters and believers and all things paranormal to just giving it up. So Jason was the first one to give up ghost hunting, give up the belief in ghosts. Again, this is something else that left me kicking and screaming. So what I was able to do is I was able to take something like, EMF, electromagnetic fields that are used in ghost hunting.
Yeah.
And I was able to figure out a reason why we shouldn't do that. So then that was thrown out. So that no longer was important to me. And then we would move on to something else, EVP, electronic voice phenomena. We could figure out reasons why we shouldn't use that. So then that would get thrown away. And then piece by piece, my belief in ghosts started to dwindle. And then, but I can even still remember, going on other radio shows and talking to people saying things like, just because I don't believe in ghosts doesn't mean, I don't believe in God. I'm actually, I actually still believe in God. I'm still a Christian. But then I started to question that just by my natural process. I mean, by this point in time, I couldn't even help the thoughts. I mean, it was like, okay, so if you've been able to come to this decision that ghosts don't exist for reasons of X, Y, and Z, and there's no evidence, well, what evidence do you have that there's a God? And then you start doing that.
And just before we get too far away from it, I would like to point out that Bobby Nelson and Jason Corpus, the two hosts of Strange Frequency Radio, at episode 6, got in contact with James Randi in episode 6 of their